Just a heads up, we discuss sensitive themes, including sexual assault and how rape plays out in the criminal justice system, as well as body image concerns.
Please listen with care and compassion for yourself and switch off at any point. We've put links for support services in the show notes. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gadigal and Bidjigal people. Can I ask a silly question off the top? I thought that was self-cleaning.
Yes, famously the vagina is self-cleaning.
And I'm sitting there trying to whisper to my vulva going, "You're fine, sweetie.
Oh,
You're beautiful. Don't listen to
sitting there
those
with
girls."
an Audi.
74% of women subjected to sexual assault didn't realise that it was a crime at the time. Men are more likely to be sexually assaulted than to be falsely accused of sexual assault.
But as a 26-year-old, I've only just learnt about discharge and it was news to me.
An online petition has gone viral.
Concerns that teach us consent has with the algorithm.
To mandate holistic and age-appropriate consent lessons.
Teachers' consent's relatable, trusted, and actually so useful.
And you incredible people at Teachers Consent.
Oh, hey, that's us.
Oh, hi. Welcome to the Teach Us Consent pod. You can follow us at Teach Us Consent and visit teachusconsent.com. Got heaps of great resources on there like mini docos and much, much more. I'm Anthony Stefanos.
I'm Tess Fuller.
And I'm Annabelle Kablean.
Oh, hello everyone.
Helloing you all.
Hello.
On this pod, we chat about what social media and pop culture say about our understanding of sex, dating and consent. And so sometimes these topics are a bit hard to discuss and you can fumble through it. So give us a bit of grace there. But like you said last week, it's great to model these conversations when you have them with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
On today's ep, I would like to discuss the reality of false accusations. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Belle, what's your palate cleanser in the middle?
I want to talk about an article I read on the ABC this week that's talking about how some products are being pushed to people that maybe they don't need.
Interesting.
Like health products?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. That segues really well into my topic of discussion, which is around the rise in labiaplasty and penis filler. Yeah.
Right.
Heaps to chat about on that.
Stacks. Before we get into it though, the Grammys are happening while we're recording, and this will be this comes out a week later, so we know this won't be that topical. But I've gotten some last minute vids for you to play over there, Annabelle. Can you go to the Sabrina Carpenter one first, please? Appreciate that. All right.
Please.
Oh yeah, let's put our glasses on.
All right, here we go.
So you'll be able to see that on the vodcast. If you're listening, she's on the red carpet talking to the photographers. Can we go to the chapel video now, please?
I gotta shut the f up. It's hot.
Oh, girl.
Chapel!
Chapel at the VMAs last year or the year before, and then that's Sabrina this year at the Grammys. And I want to put to you, so Chapel missed her quote unquote spot.
I'm taking my glasses off
Oh, yeah,
right now,
me
by the
too,
way.
actually.
How
Goodness
embarrassing for us.
Which the spot must be where they need to stand to get the perfect picture. And do you think Chapel has set a standard of consent on red carpets?
I don't know if maybe it is consent. I think it's just respect, and consent is about respect. But I think, yeah, gosh, she's so commanding in that video too.
Yeah. Well, because they clearly get told where to stand and maybe they don't want to, or that's just where they sort of are ushered through. And then this photographer was clearly demanding that she stand there so that they can get the perfect picture for their own purposes, for their company's magazine cover or something.
But also, if she was in the wrong spot, that's not how you ask someone nicely to move.
No.
Oh, so true. So modeling some consent and respect. Can I claim it, or is it you both saying it's a stretch?
I think it's a consent claim. I think you can have it.
It's definitely
Do it as well, Annabelle. Consent claim.
Consent claim.
it's definitely modeling boundaries for her, sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Fantastic.
true. And not treating people purely like they're objects to be moved around. Like bringing a bit of humanity to the table. That's really nice.
Totally. Fellas, they make amazing music. Let's start listening to it more.
They meaning?
Sabrina Carpenter and Chapel Roan.
Oh, yeah. The pop girls.
Yeah, they're pop girls.
Yeah, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel really uplifted, sometimes emotional. When you know the backstory of, say, a Chapel Roan song, it's quite beautiful. You know?
Very moving.
Now, onto the show. All right, so we'll start with false accusations first. And I think without mentioning anything in particular, when there's a rape case that gets media attention and it isn't centered around a stranger in a dark alley or whatever, it's rather two people that know each other and sometimes a person of note, this conversation of false accusations generally comes up. So that's where I want to start today. And first I want to acknowledge a genuine fear that predominantly men or young men have around false accusations. That would be a really scary thing to happen if you were falsely accused of a crime you didn't commit. Of any crime, let alone this one, because like your reputation would be damaged. I assume you'd lose some of your community around you, job opportunities. It would be very tough.
Definitely.
However, we do have some stats which we'll get to in a moment that we can talk to how rare a false accusation is. Also want to give a slight analogy, and I wonder what you'll think of it. You can let me know if it's trivializing the issue too much. I also think sometimes the fear comes from, like, no one's afraid to be falsely accused of speeding or drink driving because you know the rules and the law in your state where you drive.
Yeah.
I don't think many people would know the extent and the detail of the law of sexual assault. Like if you looked up the Crimes Act, which is where you can find it in each state, and you realize exactly what constitutes a crime here, you'd probably be far less concerned with being falsely accused because you know what you can and can't do. I know that makes it a bit black and white, and it's not necessarily that anyway.
Yeah, I think if we're to take that to be true, I don't wholeheartedly agree with it, but maybe it's a useful analogy for some people. Then the best way to mitigate a fear of a false accusation is to understand consent and like learn and practice that. I don't think there's any fear that you're going to be falsely accused if you're checking in with someone constantly, you're respecting their boundaries, respecting their no's, openly communicating, like in a similar way that you have to sit a test to get your L's and understand the road rules. You feel confident on the road. To feel confident having sex safely, respectfully with someone, it is sort of about learning about consent. So maybe there is something.
Yeah.
Maybe there is something useful in there. Yeah. I also
totally.
think maybe like this rising fear of being falsely accused or falsely convicted is paralleled with the Me Too movement and how that brought sexual assault as a epidemic to the forefront. And, you know, the consequences for people who are convicted of this crime are really severe. So there is, you know, valid fear around that. But I'm like, why are we talking about it now? Like, why does it feel so potent at the moment?
I think you're right. And if you suffer those consequences and you were falsely accused, that would be very hard for you. However, they are far more rare than you would imagine, and we can alleviate some of those fears. With Belle, you've got the first couple of stats that we want to touch on. If you're able to give them to us, please.
So we have some stats from 2022 from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which describes that 2 million Australian women over the age of 18 have experienced sexual assault since the age of 15. And at that time, there were 9.9 million Australian women over the age of 18. And then only...
So that's like 1 in 5 women. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
And from there, only 8% of those 2 million women reported their sexual assault to the police.
From 2 million times 8% or whatever that is, you're down in the hundred thousands, I think, which is a significant drop. Before we get into why people may not report and why that number, that 8% is so low, we're going to talk to like how prevalent sexual assault is as compared with false accusations.
We know that people are harmed way more than people are falsely accused. Like one way to skin it is that women are more likely to be sexually assaulted than to falsely accuse someone of sexual assault. But also like men are more likely to be sexually assaulted than to be falsely accused of sexual assault. And then just for men as well, that's also 1 in 16 men. So when the fear of false accusation becomes the main lens through which we talk about sexual violence, it can kind of like unintentionally or quietly center men's anxiety over women's safety. And that doesn't mean men's fears don't matter, but it just means that they need to be held like alongside reality, which is that so many people are sexually assaulted, not above it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I would say to that.
And so then so many are 2 million, and then 8% of that 2 million report. Why might someone not report? Like what are the barriers for the other 92%?
Yeah. God, there's so many. And the reason that we're talking about this, right, is because one of the main rape myths is that if someone didn't report, then it never actually happened. Like, you know, you might hear of a woman or a person who's been sexually assaulted and then you go, oh, did she report it to the police? Okay, clearly didn't happen then because it wasn't that serious to take to the police, which is, you know, there's myriad reasons that we know that not to be true, which I'll chat about. But even before that, it's really hard for people to immediately realise that they've been sexually assaulted in the first place, let alone then go and report it. There were Australian Bureau of Statistics from 2021. They found that 74% of women subjected to sexual assault didn't realise that it was a crime at the time. One of the reasons I think this can happen is because people may experience shock or disconnection as a stress response to what occurred. Like the brain can protect itself when a traumatic incident occurs by blocking events out to cope with your daily life. And then maybe when you learn more about consent, when you tell a friend and they told you that's not okay, when you enter into a new relationship and you're realizing that this is affecting your intimate life, or when a memory or a feeling just comes back, that's when you realize.
And then could you also say the same, and this isn't to cut a perpetrator any slack whatsoever, but if a victim's getting consent education years later and realizing what's happened, it's likely that the perpetrator also didn't even realize what they did was wrong, immoral, illegal. I feel like sometimes people get afraid of false accusations or reject some consent education out of fear that like they've done something wrong. It's like, well, actually you may have. You can still educate yourself and improve and deal with the consequences.
Yes. And also something that you did touch on I want to pick up is the fact that when you do receive comprehensive consent education and you understand what sexual coercion is, and the fact that if someone's like pressuring you, repeatedly asking you to continue after you've said no, or has used alcohol to ply you to make you more likely to have sex, they all constitute sexual crimes as well. So it is often when we learn about how nuanced consent is and how important affirmative and free and voluntary consent is that we realise, perhaps we have been harmed, and that experience that you previously chalked up to just being bad sex or a miscommunication or an uncomfortable night or I got too drunk was actually a violation.
Yeah.
And it goes the other way too. Like there may be people listening to this reflecting on times that they haven't practiced good consent through lack of knowledge, but also through maybe an ingrained sense of entitlement that it's worth challenging as well. The point of that was just to say like, even before we get to the reporting, cooked as in you're cooked,
like,
mate.
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to be like a cool Gen Z, like you were cooking.
And you are. You don't have to prove it to us.
Oh, thanks.
It's okay. All good. Are you feeling good?
Bit rattled.
All good. All good.
Last time I tried to pull a maneuver like that. Sorry, carry on.
All good. That takes us to why people don't report if they do realise what happened to them. I have a whole list of reasons here, and it would be great to like hit them all and then maybe we could all discuss them.
Totally.
Number one is that the person didn't regard the incident as a serious offence or didn't think or know that the incident was a crime, which I think we've kind of spoken to. But there's also this idea, because lots of the sexual assault tropes that we've been exposed to through media are, as you started the episode with, that stranger in a dark alley. And if your experience doesn't fit that really violent and forceful instance of assault, then perhaps you don't think it's bad enough to report. That is something that victim survivors will say as well.
I mean, I know we were going to rip through them and then discuss at the end, but I was glancing at those ABS stats, and of the 2 million women sexually assaulted since the age of 15, there was not enough people sexually assaulted by strangers to move the needle away from it being 2 million women were sexually assaulted by someone they knew. So that like stranger in an alley is like almost completely dispelled. It's obviously not completely dispelled because that still happens, but it is almost always someone they know.
Wow.
Which was shocking.
Yeah, and it's often in romantic relationships too. And that, I guess, is another reason why we might not report, is because we don't want to believe that the perpetrator would do that to us, because we are meant to be in a loving relationship with them. And also for fear of, what happens if that relationship breaks down for you, if the perpetrator is someone in a position of like great power or authority in the world or in your relationship, it can be really scary because they've just exerted a lot of power and control over you by violating your body. If you were to, you know, sort of agitate them by reporting, that can feel really scary too, not knowing.
And often as well, your community is surrounded by your partner. So you might not want to report them because then you could also lose that support.
Totally. And it would like divide a friendship group, a family unit. They see that person as like someone who could never do something like that and a real upstanding person in their group or their family. And so then it's sort of a whose side do they take, which would be really jarring and scary in the lead up to reporting.
Yeah.
Conscious that we've taken you off your list a little bit. What else is there?
No, it's good. I mean, God, it's not as cut and dry as a list. And I think every single person and victim survivor has a very unique set of circumstances that are influencing whether or not they choose to report as well, particularly for people from culturally and linguistically diverse communities and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women in Australia. There are so many like community-oriented factors that can produce extra layers of shame around being assaulted or make it so that, you know, you fear that your perpetrator could get deported perhaps if they're like undocumented, like there's, or you don't want to bring shame upon your family. There's so much out there. So it's not like here's a list of 5 reasons why people don't report. It's so dependent on the person. And that's really the point.
I can also imagine with time as a victim survivor, and I've just clocked that. I apologize if I haven't referred to someone who's been sexually assaulted as a victim survivor up until this point.
That's okay. People have different preferences.
Ripping through. But I can imagine as well there'd be maybe a feeling of like as time goes by, like they lose a sense of like what would the point be, or like what like hope in gaining a conviction or justice for something like that. I mean, think about all the little things you just like let go in your day, and it's not by any means a comparison, but like I can imagine something that big weighing on your shoulders, eventually it would just feel easier to not report it and go through like a criminal process.
Yeah. And that is the other thing, right? Is that the criminal justice system is deeply re-traumatizing for victim survivors. And there's this ties right back into false accusations. Like you might have heard this idea that, women stand to gain something from falsely accusing a perpetrator and taking them through the court system. But as Annabelle will fill us in with the statistics, like the likelihood of a guilty conviction is so low.
Yeah. What's there to gain? Other than,
Yeah, I mean the likelihood of you gaining something is really low in the first place. Not to mention how re-traumatizing like a cross-examination can be. I mean, you're put on the stand and forced to recount the very often gruesome and traumatizing details of the incident. And the legal process is built around this idea that like a credible witness will give a linear and stable story that is told the same every single time, from the statement that they give when they visit the police station to whatever they say on the stand. But the more that a victim survivor is asked to recount the event, like in police interviews and statements and cross-examination, the more pressure is put onto their memory system that is never designed to function to remember everything in the first case, in the instance of a traumatic event. Like your memory functioning, and I don't understand this properly, but what I do know is that like someone who has experienced a traumatic event does not remember those events very well. And that's just how the brain functions to keep you safe at the time. One example, if I may, is like so soft, but when I was 15, my mum was insanely sick. Like she was in hospital for 6 months and then in rehab for 6 months. And it was a whole year of my school life. And I know for sure that I went to visit her in rehab every single day after school, but I don't remember a single visit. And I did that for 6 months because it must have been really traumatic for me to see my mum so unwell.
No, totally.
Like, can you imagine what it sounded like? And we would all have experiences like that.
Yeah. And I like the example I can think of, again, sometimes I feel like these analogies are stupid because it might feel like it's minimizing the seriousness of what we're talking about. But like, in a movie where it's like someone I don't know, the cops go and interview someone like, did you see a guy walking down the street 4 Thursdays ago at 3 a.m.? They're like, yeah, he had a tattoo here and one earring and a scar on his left arm. And I'm like, I could never remember that. Which and if I was just a witness from afar, I could never remember that, let alone if like I was the victim survivor and suffered the traumatic thing. So there's already so many really valid reasons why that 92% out of 2 million aren't coming forward. Are there any others that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, I think one that we haven't touched on yet is just the fact that people are fearing that they won't be believed in the first place if they come forward.
True.
Yeah.
By their community or by the authorities.
Yeah. And we know this to be true. Like I read a big investigative piece done by the ABC on the weekend, and they found that 1 in 12 cases that are reported to the police are dismissed as unfounded. And unfounded doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't happen, but it could mean that, you know, there's insufficient evidence or that a report was made on behalf of a victim survivor and they don't want to pursue that anymore. But even that, and that can be up actually as high as 1 in 4 in particular regions, even that as an experience where you go and you are immediately disbelieved by the arbiters of the law in many ways, let alone what your friends and family are going to think. Yeah.
And touching as well on what you said now, just then, Tess, and earlier, certain groups of people are going to have a completely different relationship with the police in the first place.
Yes.
So that would be another reason as to why they maybe already felt like they haven't been believed, or they won't receive the same treatment as another group of people. They wouldn't go there anyway.
Exactly. I did actually really want to quote Professor Marcia Langton, who is a super distinguished Aboriginal Australian writer and academic and activist for land rights. And she, speaking on the ABC, said, when Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women make a call to the police for help, it immediately triggers the child protection authorities, who arrive and almost universally conclude that the children are not safe because a woman has asked for help in a family violence or a domestic violence or a sexual assault case. And so then the perpetrators of violence weaponise this behaviour of the police and child protection system and hold that over the woman and make her extremely vulnerable to even further violence.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, and that is, you know, one intensely
real reason why you wouldn't want to report something.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
You know, losing your kids is potentially the cost of reporting harm that's happened to you.
And we don't know what we don't know. And like there are so many other cultures and people from different backgrounds that coexist in our country, and we've got, you know, no clue of the cultural context that they're coming with or their family or religious values. So it just, it can't be a blanket, oh, you've got to report, because it's not safe for many people.
You're right. And thank you for your answers, both of you. And before we get to the final stats from Annabelle, and I think you actually touched on one of them already, but you know how you were saying before the victim survivor might not even realise that what was happening was wrong or illegal or sexual assault. And so therefore they might have just chalked it up to a bad sexual experience, potentially, quote unquote, went along with it because that's all they knew at the time. What would you say to a young man who's asking, well, how am I supposed to know that they're just going along with it in that moment?
As a man, I would love to hear what you would say.
Checking in, creating a safe environment where someone feels like they don't have to go along with it and they can say, can we pause? Can we stop entirely? Can we just go back to doing this? And I think not even just like creating that environment is a bit intangible, some would argue. So ask the question.
Yeah.
Are you still comfortable doing this? Would you prefer to go back to that? It's so much easier to like, if a friend says, you don't have to come if you don't want to the party, to then say, yeah, actually I don't, than if they just create the environment but you still have to be the one to bring it up.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my answer. Would you add anything?
Yeah. I mean, there's like practical things you can do to make someone feel safe too, like not locking the door without asking them. Or if they request for a light to be on, do that because it might make them feel safer. And asking open-ended questions as opposed to closed questions is kind of crucial too. Like instead of going, oh, do you want to do this? You could say, what do you want to do? Because
Yeah.
when you have to say, no, I don't want to do this, that can feel scary because you don't want to reject someone or hurt their feelings. So you kind of might feel more likely to say yes to protect someone else's feelings.
Yeah.
So asking an open-ended question is really nice.
Fantastic.
I think the key message here is that the more time we spend on fear of false accusations, which are just so low, and, you know, a false conviction even lower, we're distracting from the point, which is that people are sexually harmed every single day, including men who may be fearful of being falsely accused. And that's what we should put our focus on preventing, is preventing sexual violence for everybody.
I agree. And there's a few more stats left that Annabelle can.
Oh, we ain't done.
yeah. The most important, well, one of the most important ones may be the actual percentage of reports that are then chopped off as false accusations. So if you want
So as you mentioned, Tess, yes, it's 1 in 12 reports will be dismissed as unfounded for all of these various reasons that we touched on. And then out of that, approximately 5% of those reports may then be proven false. But according to the New South Wales Bureau of Crime Stats, 7% of sexual assaults reported to the New South Wales Police result in a guilty outcome. This varies across the states, but it's generally between 6 to 8%.
So if we use that like percentage, you've got 8% of 2 million sexual assaults, 5% of that 8% false accusations that you're afraid of. So that's very small, you got to imagine. I won't do the maths, but it can't be as many as you think. 1 in 12 of that dismissed or unfounded, and then only 7% of that 8% roughly get found as guilty. Compare that to the stat you mentioned at the start, 1 in 16 Australian men. All in all, you're more likely to be sexually assaulted as a man in Australia than to be falsely convicted of sexually assaulting someone.
So I wanted to talk to you guys about this article that I read on ABC this week.
Right,
And
for our palate cleanser.
Little palate cleanser. And it's called Online Advertising and Algorithms Target Consumer Insecurities About Intimate Hygiene.
Elaborate.
I don't think these would be coming up in your algorithms, but potentially you've seen some of these ads, Tess, and they're basically for like creams, gels, pessaries, which are tablets that dissolve internally,
To be
yogurts,
put up the vagina?
put up the vagina. There's a myriad of products out there basically that are supposed to be promoting vaginal health, as though there's something wrong with your vagina or your vulva, which is not true.
Okay.
So famously,
They got us again. Those
ask a
damn
silly-
advertisers.
Can I ask a silly question off the top?
No silly questions.
I thought that was self-cleaning.
that was what I was about to say.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much for coming through
No
with
one
that.
likes a know-it-all.
Yes, famously the vagina is self-cleaning. Much
Wow.
like your eyes or your ears.
What a
you know?
contraption.
Yeah, it's really smart. So you don't actually need to put these things up there unless you have an actual medical issue. But because a lot of the time we don't have that much access to information about how our bodies should be functioning, the internet is often where people learn or are given false information about things like that. A really common example of that is discharge, which all vaginas produce. But it's difficult to talk about what's normal because it doesn't take into account age or where you are in your menstrual cycle, or if you're on contraceptions, if you're taking other medications. So what normal is quite confusing and can lead people down these rabbit holes of going, there's something wrong with me.
Can I ask another silly question?
Yeah, we just established there are none.
Yeah. But as a 26-year-old, I've only just learned about discharge, and it was news to me until recently. And so can we do at some point a palate cleanser? It doesn't have to be this ep because we're pushed for time, but a palate cleanser on the menstrual cycle and discharge. I knew about the menstrual cycle. I'm not an idiot at 26, but just like the concept of discharge was new to me and might be to some others.
So the point of this is sort of around like how advertising is creating insecurities that we don't need to have and then
Yeah.
selling us products to
The
fix
thing
them.
that I want to touch on, right, is like in this article, there's a woman who's talking about these ads that she continually saw, which were basically for honey. And yes, honey is antibacterial and antimicrobial and all that's really good and stuff. But this product that people were promoting based on the fact that there's potentially something wrong with the pH of your vagina, which there shouldn't be, and if there is, you need to see a GP. This honey was being marketed for $95.
Damn.
So that's the point that I wanted to
Hoodwinked.
make about this. Yeah, you're getting tricked.
You are right.
Yes, there can be really useful information on TikTok and Instagram. I'm not denying that at all. While these TikToks might seem really scientific, they're actually just using specific language to get around certain laws. So it's important to fact check, basically.
Seedy.
Yeah.
And gosh, I wish we got more of this education around discharge. I wish Anthony learned about discharge before
same.
last week, it appears.
Been driving around with my blinkers on. Like one of those horses.
Open your eyes, mate.
Yeah, I know. So bottom line is, if you're concerned about something, or if something on TikTok has brought up an insecurity or a potential worry about a health issue, see a GP.
Yeah, if you're worried that something isn't normal, for lack of a better term, that's who you need to go talk to about it. And they can probably alleviate those fears.
Not your algorithm. Okay, well, while we're on the vagina, I'd love us to stay there for a little while. Pause for a minute. And I want to talk about the rise in genital modifications, namely labiaplasty. Labiaplasty is one of the fastest growing cosmetic procedures among...
Sorry, thank God, because if I didn't know what discharge was, I was not going to know what labiaplasty was.
No, I got you, brother. Fastest growing cosmetic procedures among young people. It's a surgical procedure that reduces, reshapes, or changes the appearance of the labia minora or labia majora. And the labia are the parts of the vulva, which is commonly mistaken to be the vagina, but it's like the external part of that whole system. And they're folds of skin that sit on either side of the vaginal opening.
So to use, if I may, like layman's terms, the lips,
yes,
if you will.
The lips, the flaps.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah, the curtains.
Okay, we've got a diagram on screen. So if you're watching the vodcast, you can see that. But carry on.
Yeah.
Got the image now.
So labiaplasty, it can be performed to alleviate physical discomfort that people can experience, like chafing or pain during exercise or pain during sexual intercourse. But it is also and increasingly being used to address aesthetic concerns or like people's embarrassment about the appearance of their vulva. And that's really what I wanted to focus on today. Important to state up top too, this is different to female genital mutilation or female genital cutting, which are often known as FGM and FGC in like cultural and religious contexts. That is a violation of human rights and is commonly done like non-consensually to infants, children and young adolescents. So these are very different things.
Okay.
Like labiaplasty is something that typically an adult chooses to do. And as I said, it can like bring people those health benefits around comfort. Yeah. But my concern and what I want to chat about is how it's often just a response to internalized shame and embarrassment about what we look like. And lots of this comes down to the fact that many of us received zilch or very limited education on genitalia presentation throughout our lives. Methinks.
Me agrees. Me agrees. But I also think if someone, as an adult, elects to do this for aesthetic reasons, then that's their decision as well. And
yes.
Should be no more judged than like someone who gets lip filler or something like that.
No, it is a good point. It is, but it's also important for us to simultaneously interrogate the reasons that we're doing the things that we do and the forces shaping our choices.
Me agrees to that too.
Me think. Women's Health Victoria, bless them, published a massive report about a year ago, and it's called Real Bodies, Understanding and Celebrating Labia Diversity. And just the title makes me so happy. And they surveyed people's attitudes towards their labia. I'll run you through some stats. 1 in 10 respondents aged between 18 and 50 said that they've considered labiaplasty. So if we extrapolate that out to the Australian population, that's over 500,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, which was crazy to me because when I first read this report, I didn't know what a labiaplasty was. So I was like, so these people know about labiaplasty and they've considered it. And 46% of those people said it was because they wanted their labia to look more like what they've seen in the media, which is, pornography, social media, just film and television and stuff.
It would be mainly like porn. How much labia do you see in movies and TV shows?
Well, you don't see a lot of labia. And
well, yeah, that's the point.
yeah, one of the reasons we don't see labia in the mainstream media, or at least like protruding labia, which is often what people are trying to fix. The whole goal, I should have said this at the top, is to just make it look more tucked in.
Okay.
An innie as opposed to an outie.
Yeah.
You might be familiar with those kind of terms. Yeah.
Dumbs it down.
The Australian Classification Board guidelines restrict vulva depiction to discrete genital detail, which makes it really difficult to include representations of protruding labia, even though 56% of women have protruding labia. The
Really?
Classification Board says
Wait, so what's
put
the
it away.
What's the wording of that again? Discrete genital
detail. And if you were wondering, unsurprisingly, there are no media guidelines around what kinds of penises can be depicted. So that is one way. They don't say, oh, you can only show the tip of a penis. They just don't put any guardrails around what kinds of penises. But this, although perhaps, you know, you might take that and go, oh, we just can't show too much of someone's vulva. Too much of someone's vulva is generally just what someone with protruding labia would look like, which is a very normal, above average, more than average.
More than half.
More than half of people.
You've got very above average labia.
Anyway, back to my point.
Yeah,
the other thing that plays into it is social media. 1 in 3 Gen Zs surveyed said that they learned what their labia should look like from social media. Oftentimes, people's like bikini shots will be edited or airbrushed to make it so that there is no like bulge or anything.
Really?
Yeah. So then that kind of adds to this perception that you have, like if you've got anything that hangs out, you're abnormal. And then pornography, obviously, like 1 in 5 Gen Zs said that they got their understandings from porn, which, as we know, often fails to represent diverse labia and favours presentations that are more neat and tucked away. So there's so much going into it. Yeah.
There was this great exhibition at Mona a few years ago, and it was something like, I can't remember the name of the artist, but I'll pop it in the show notes. But it was something like, I don't know, hundreds of casts of different vulvas.
Yes.
And they were all hung up on the wall. And I had understood that there were different sizes and shapes out there, but this was like such a great representation of like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hello, ladies.
Yes.
It's
And
great.
It's great. So I'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Because it's really worth looking at.
Yes. Georgia Grace has a book called The Modern Guide to Sex as well. And she's got a couple of double spreads, I reckon, of different vulvas.
And of penises.
And
that was like,
penises.
oh, I see, you know, like there I
see myself in these pages. Yes. Also just coming back to these statistics, 1 in 4 respondents aged 18 to 24 said that they feel anxious or unhappy with how their labia look. 34% said that they associated with negative words like weird, disgusting, or ugly. 1 in 8 had actually put off visiting a doctor for sexual and reproductive concerns because of how their labia looks.
Oh.
And 1 in 10 felt too embarrassed or unwilling to have sex due to the appearance of their labia. It's so sad. Like, it really is. And I can think of countless times during my childhood and teen years where it was reinforced to me that having protruding labia was really disgusting. And I will never forget driving to Falls Festival with a bunch of girls who I wasn't that close with, and we'd hit like 8 hours into the drive and I was feeling really nonverbal, and they were all having conversations about someone's vagina. And I don't know who, but one of them goes, oh no, I saw it. It's an outie. And every single girl in the car was like, yuck, yuck. And I'm sitting there trying to like whisper to my vulva going, you're fine, sweetie.
Oh.
You're beautiful. Don't listen
Sitting
to
there
those
with
girls.
an outie.
But of course I can never, like that's not an environment where I felt like I could turn around and go, hey, can we not shame people?
But also statistically, wouldn't at least some of the girls in that car agreeing with being like, yuck, probably have a outie as well?
Yeah.
And then feel so much shame that they're speaking that way about it?
That's what I was
Also,
reflecting on too. Yeah.
Just everyone at like in teenage years and then like early 20s, we're just all so insecure and like we'll kind of say anything to protect what we're insecure about.
Yeah.
Not saying the person who said that had an outie themselves, but
yeah.
chances
And you know
are
what's
maybe.
crazy? I didn't even want to tell that story on mic because I knew that it would mean admitting that I was in the majority of 56% of women who had protruding labia minora or whatever it is. And then I was like, no, if I'm here to destigmatize what we think a vulva should look like, then I
Yeah.
have to say that. But it still really scared me.
Yeah,
So I just-
fair. Good
there
on
is
you.
a-
No, well done.
Yeah, well,
That's
Thanks,
Well
guys.
done, Tess.
Thanks for creating a space for me to open up.
no, you're welcome. Well, what about the guys? Is there like, because as I said, I saw lots of different penises in that book, Georgia Grace's book you were referring to before. Saw mine. A guy's kind of feeling insecure, and is there a path for them to take?
Yeah, there is a concurrent increase in demand for penis filler. And Annabelle actually alerted me to this. But there is this surgeon in New York, David Schaefer, and he debuted this procedure a couple of years ago. It doesn't increase the length, but it does increase girth. And he's nicknamed it SWAG. And the acronym is for Schaefer Width and Girth. Like, what a great way to repackage.
And that
That's branding, baby.
and
Yeah.
that is, he launched it at the same time Justin Bieber launched his album.
Oh, it was a collaboration.
And what a wonderful, one of the great marketing stunts of all time.
Anyway,
Funniness of the acronym aside, as we said with the labiaplasty, no shame at all for someone who decides to take that path if they feel insecure. But tell us more about it.
well, yeah, many men are. He reckons he's seen a 300% increase in inquiries at his clinic over the last 2 years. So much so that he set up a new clinic elsewhere. The demand
Wow.
is just that big. And then lots of other clinics in America particularly that are doing it are reporting a big surge in interest. I think there's something to say about how men are more open to discussing and like pursuing cosmetic enhancements to address concerns about their appearance than perhaps they used to be.
I remember in high school penis size being a massive cause for concern for my cohort, but not from the women, from the guys. And they would mock each other and bully each other about perceived penis size and whether they were a grower, not a shower, or whatever it was. So I can see how those attitudes could have, they're
No,
quite
totally.
pervasive, and they would stick into adulthood and go, okay, what do I do about this, a perceived problem that I have?
Yeah.
I mean, every sports club got someone nicknamed Snake because they've got a huge penis. And they're a legend because of it.
I
Yeah.
missed out on so much.
Oh no, but in high school, everyone had a mate that was hung like a horse, and you'd talk about it, and you'd go, all right, that's it does foster and breed a bit of insecurity. And a lot of TV shows, in Game of Thrones, there's a character who they just always joke has a huge penis, so much so that the sex workers that he slept with didn't want him to pay because it was so big, and it's that is one of the biggest shows of all time, and that's how that was kind of depicted.
Yeah, there's also that perceived idea that the size of your penis is going to mean that you're better in bed.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true.
Totally. That is kind of what most men that I can see who are getting this procedure are saying. It's around general confidence boosting, and it's mainly because it's a girth, not a lengthener. They say that it hangs better when they're at the gym or wearing swimmers or something. And then it's around the perceived sexual gratification that they're giving someone with their newly enhanced penis. This surgery and the fact that it's so popular has to also exist because society does encourage us to feel bad about our appearances. Whether, whatever gender we are, whatever background we are, people can make a lot of money over you feeling bad about yourself and feeling like you could pay someone to help you fix it. And
Yeah.
we can't understate the impact of mainstream pornography and social media algorithms on that.
Yeah. I think this being about your genitals is maybe why it's so prevalent these days, because you really don't get educated about what genitals should look like or do or grow other than porn. I mean, I can't speak for everyone. Obviously, so maybe someone's gone to a school that's got a really comprehensive curriculum on that.
Yeah, or your parents
that
showed
are really sort of comfortable speaking about that stuff. But for me, it was just mostly what I saw in porn.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
Or really clinical diagrams that don't really, they point out the menorah or the majora, but they're all flat.
Yeah.
That's not
Yes.
helping.
How can
Bring
you
back
tell
the
the
wall of
difference?
vulvas.
Yes.
And let's bring in a wall of penises.
Please.
And really the message here is that labia, penises, whatever, come in all sizes, shapes, colors, textures. If someone's putting you down for what your genitals look like, they do not deserve to see you naked.
Oh, yes.
And your body does not need to be designed in a particular way. You're also entitled to design it if you feel like that's a good choice for you, but it doesn't have to. It shouldn't be the expectation.
That's all for this week. You can get in touch at Teach Us Consent on Instagram or at teachusconsent.com. You can
Teach Us Consent on TikTok.
Yeah, absolutely.
We must not forget.
You can view some content there, but if you go to the website, there's a contact form as well. You can email us topics you want to discuss if you need more than an Instagram DM. And you can also go to teachusconsent.com/get-support. If you need support services, that'll pop up on screen if you're watching the vodcast. Plus, it'll be in the show notes. Thank you very much, girls.
Thank you, Anthony.
You.
And Annabelle.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Annabelle. Thank you, Tess.